Greeting, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The listener cannot appreciate this, as we again ask for permission from the ancestors to give a short, beautiful message about the human being. This is not a mystery, this place. And although the water has come and gone many times for different reasons, and the glaciers also come and go, this place has been visited so many times by so many. Sometimes the water is controlled a certain way, so the shoreline is not exactly as you see now. But dear ones, the lake in general was a place to do exactly what you're doing now. To sit for a moment and to feel this beautiful energy. If I said to you at this point in time, with this cloudless day, in this place that is normally not this way, if I said to you, can you feel the energy? Would you like to just remain for a moment and take it all in? Most humans would say, yes, I could stay all day. And that is the energy that we speak of. And dear ones, the reasons that human is connected to this is because it is all benevolent energy. Gaia is benevolent and balanced. The partner is yours, and we've said it many times. This particular channel will be an invitation, a plea, really, as some of the past ones have been as well, to start a new paradigm of existence with spirit as a human being. And the paradigm we are asking you to go to is new. It is new. And the paradigm we're asking you to go to is more complete than the one you've had. The last channel yesterday, we may have shocked some who would listen when we said it is time to stop opening portals. First of all, they're already open. But the second thing is that in an older energy, that is how you perceived what you were here for. And we told you that instead, in this new energy where you are more complete with the planet, what you're supposed to do instead is to greet the area. Go into the portal and shake hands. So it becomes more personal and less of an outside influential thing you might do. Humans are used to looking at spirit and Gaia and even their structures of spirituality as something enormous. And you fit into it in a very odd way. You're little and it's big. It's odd to us because you have always been big. But in an old energy, this just wasn't perceivable as it is today. So we say to the human being, don't open a portal, go into it and be the portal. Be the magnificence that you are and enjoy the fact that the portal isn't something that is Gaia only. It is waiting for humans to be there as well. And so I ask you now, what is the structure you see around you for your spirituality? Again, why is it that you could sit here all day and enjoy this nature? And you would say, somehow it feeds me. And we've heard that before, and it does. Are you aware that you feed it? Are you aware of the partnership? I'll say it again. When you hug a tree, don't you feel it hug you back? It does. I want to ask you, where is your spiritual structure? Is it external or internal? Do you look outside of yourself for strength? And if so, do you perceive spirit as large and you small? Do you have a structure or an organization or a group that you believe is where you belong? And when you go there, it feels good, and when you don't, you're less than. If that's the case, dear ones, we ask you to start claiming a bigger truth. And the truth is that you are the church, and always have been. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't report or go or be or worship to a place. I am telling you, the structure of the spiritualness of all things is within you. And where you go, you create that which you might worship. And where you go is where God is. And we will ask you again in many channels in the future about how you perceive the structure of yourself. The big one, are you self-complete or not? And so many of you say, well, I need the energies of this place, or perhaps this organization, or perhaps this person, in order for you to be complete. And we say the difference between the old energy and the new is very much allied to this perception. The indigenous were complete, and they understood that when they went to a place like this was their church. And because they were humans and Gaia was Gaia, the partnership was complete. The wisdom of the ancestors is a complete wisdom. And we're asking you to return to this because it was more elegant at that time than what you have now. The completeness is this. You are self-balancing, complete as you are, because you have God inside. You are your own shaman. You are your own reader. And as you progress on the planet in an elegance of revelation of who you are, these things will become self-evident. Isn't it nice in this energy to know that the old soul is starting to awaken into a bigger spirituality, not a smaller one, not a more difficult one, not just a different one. An elegance that is yours in compassion, because the earth has gone through the procession of the equinoxes, and you have too. The channeling of this day may be heard in future generations, and they will nod, and they will know. This is the beginning of something that is coming, that is real. That spirituality will become more personal and less organizational, more profound than ever before. This is not a time for spiritual things to pass away on this planet. This is a time for spiritual things to be embraced on this planet in so many ways. And you are in the right place at the right time. I again want to tell you something that will sound so trite. That where you sit and stand today, overlooking this beautiful lake, in a cloudless sky looking at the mountains, I will say it again. This is Gaia greeting you, making you comfortable, saying hello. Because most of the time, it's not like this. Do you understand that? This is not a roll of the dice today. At all. Sit for a moment, even after this channel. Sit for a moment. Feel the energy of the ground. There is a message that this planet wants to give to you. Every day of your life. You happen to sit in its majesty today, and tomorrow you may not. You may sit in an office or a school or your workplace, and you can take this with you. The planet is the planet. It's always under your feet. It's just today it shows itself in a majesty that's beautiful. So it's easier for it to talk to you today. And what it's going to say to you, if you listen carefully with your heart, is we are together. We're going to go through this together. As the earth starts to change, the weather starts to change, all things start to move into a new earth with a new human. Gaia says to you, we're in it together. You are not alone and never were. You contain the spark of God in your DNA. Gaia is in support of that spark. That is the truth. Can you see yourself with no external help, but you and Gaia together? And if you can see that maturity in you, all things around you will start to make sense. Dear ones, I ask you again, in an old energy, has it affected you? What do you expect? Do you expect difficulty? What do you see when you look at others? Do you expect things to be difficult? And I will say in this energy, dear ones, Spirit will take your order and place it for you and then give it to you. For what you expect, you will reap. That is how powerful you are as a creator in this new energy. And an old soul. Finally, I say this to you. Some of you will look upon this place, and your Akash will ring. And you will say, I've been here before. Some of you. Not all. And if that starts to happen and you wonder whether you're deceiving yourself or thinking out of the box of reality, I will tell you, you are starting to get messages literally from the planet, from your own Akash, from history, that says, this is your land. Welcome back. If only for a moment. Welcome back. There's more. But for now, take it in. Understand. There's more than you think here. What a beautiful thing to be able to say to you in this energy. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The ocean is not far away. The attendees form a circle around me. Sometimes these channelings are not filled with profundities, information, new concepts. Sometimes they just are. The one today is not a message. It's a meditation. I would ask all of those around me now who are standing to just simply relax for a moment and shut your eyes. In these few moments, to visualize some things that I will bring to you. Some things that my partner does not expect. If we had to name this meditation, it would be beginnings. Not new beginnings, not change, just beginnings. It is appropriate that you hear the surf and know that you're on an island. It is not necessarily a sacred place that you sit or stand, unless you understand that the sacredness is with you all the time. So wherever you decide to come together in a circle to celebrate that which is the creative source within you, anytime you do this, you create the sacred space. And that is what is happening right now. I want to take you back. The tour that you are part of, dear ones, has the name Lemuria connected with it. By the time the Lemurians came here, there was no real Lemuria, for it had been disseminated. But the ones who came here were Lemurian. And I want to tell you about that culture just a little bit. I have discussed many times something so obscure and so esoteric that the belief is hard to imagine. The belief is this, that the Pleiadians seeded you all over the planet, but in Lemuria it was special. And things were taught there for many, many years. When the DNA was changed for humanity, it was operating better than it is today. We've given you this information and why it took place and how it is, and the fact that it is now returning to where it was and beyond. But they gave concepts in Lemuria that you've lost today. And one of them was the teaching about beginnings. There were no clocks, there was no time. The time was measured by the sun and the moon, by the stars. And when events happened, they were driven by humans. When there was birth, when there was death, when there was sickness, when it was simply time to sing, there would be gatherings, and they called them beginnings. Indeed, it's easy for you to see why a beginning would be a birth. When the women would all get together and sing as an underwater birth occurred, and then sing certain songs when the first cries were heard. But we didn't talk about death. Lemurians did not see death as death. It was called beginnings. Every single time there was a shift or a change, it was called a beginning. Here is the acknowledgement that the concept of change was not change. There were no farewells, it was beginning. Everything started a new type of life, a new paradigm of life. If there was indeed a death, it changed it for all around the family, and a beginning is what it was called. The one who passed away was seen to want to return, and that was known. And so it was a beginning of a new soul's life. You can imagine, can you not, that the concept created a balance. A balance so there was no fear. Even sadness was tempered by a beginning. I want to ask you, what are the beginnings in your life? Can you go here with me? And just for a moment, as you listen to the surf, the same surf, by the way, that the Lemurians listened to. It was for them the same as it is for you now. What is it that has changed in your life that you lament? Are you in sorrow for anything? Those listening right now, how is it with you? Are you trying to get over something? I want to challenge you for a higher operational DNA that is conceptual will see all change as beginning. It's the beginning of a new paradigm, but also a new way of thinking about things. Expectations, potentials, even joy. The Lemurians were taught there is no goodbye, there is no farewell. There is really no shift. When the island sunk and started to go under, and they wondered whether it would go completely under, it took years, and the name of it was the Grand Beginning. Even as they left to the islands and the canoes went out, and they had no idea if they'd even see each other again. The Grand Beginning is what they called it. This was conceptual and mature. It was cognized and it worked. Even in this group, as you sit and stand here, what are you looking at that could be a beginning today that you carry around with you? and you can't let go of. Be a Lemurian for a moment. Go back with me to that conceptual DNA, the training of the original seed bearers who stood in front of you and gave you maturity, concepts that were grand, a way to live in peace and harmony, and a lack of fear. What is your beginning today? Do not label it new beginning. That's a favorite, even of my partner. Just call it what it is, a beginning. And if you understand this concept, you'll understand there is no end, ever. The circle of life is complete. What a beautiful thing to think about. No end, only beginning. Listen to the surf a moment. You see, it never ends. No matter when you come here, this is the sound you will hear. It's a beginning and it's an end. It's constant and complete, just like you. It's a message of meditation for the day. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Surface. We sit on the grass in a beautiful place overlooking a lake. Once again, Gaia is quiet. And in these moments, there is much to tell you. Dear ones, sometimes the channeling is soft. It's quiet, it's compassionate. Not much information is given, and other times it's different. My partner once asked me what to expect. And I told him to expect nothing. And that's when the information would be the clearest. Today we wish to cover something that is one of the oldest subjects we have. And yet it renews itself when you put it with a subject. And that is the linearity of humans. One of the aspects of this new energy is what we have called compassionate action, the new human being. And we have channeled now for years what that might mean. What is different in the way that you think or feel than before? It's starting to happen with many. And in that happening, often there is an uncomfortableness, sometimes a confusion. Old souls are feeling it first. The definition of old soul, yet again, is a human being who has had many lifetimes on this planet and is comfortable with themselves and the planet. Those who would travel today and sit in front of me on the grass, or those standing in front of me on the grass, are old souls, every single one. And you might ask, even as you listen to this, how do I know? How do I really know I'm an old soul? And the answer is, it's an internal guidance system that says, you're not new here, you've been here, you've done that. And when you look upon things like Gaia and nature, you feel something. Are you aware that a newbie, one who has just arrived on the planet, will walk around with a frustrated look? For every single thing they do, they're measuring the reactions they've never seen before, both in human and in energy. This is one who will not necessarily want to go to the forest because there's nothing to feel. This is one who is often confused most of the time. It's a tough thing to be new on the planet. You are not. None of you. There are some who have been here far longer than others, but an old soul is just one who has had a lot of experience here. And the old soul is the one who is going to feel these changes first. So let's talk about specifically one of the shifts, and also a concept for you that I hope my partner can bring forward. Where to start? Psychology. Those who study the psychology of the human brain, the human being, the human heart, all together, those who are trying to figure out how humans think and work, are healers, everyone. And they study the human mind in so many ways, and there's so much to know. For the mind is complex, but to even make it more interesting, the human is not functioning at 100%. And so the mind often gets separated because there are walls between kinds of thoughts. Add to that, there is the akash that pushes the envelope of what is real, what is dreamed, who you are. A human being who is not operating fully with a DNA that is giving more than 30% is often struggling with reality. A psychologist will tell you that you have to deal with many things, and it has many names. It's also controversial, for there will be many kinds of psychology. There are systems that seem to have identified you, who you are, what you might do, the propensities you might have, what you might even do next. There's the conscious, the subconscious, the superconscious. There's the self, the not self. And in all of these, there are some kinds of barriers between them. And the barriers are what the psychologists try to examine and then lead the human being through the barriers so that they will have an aha and help themselves. But there is so much more. Now, if you talk to a psychologist or anyone who is scientific, including a biologist, and you say that the DNA is responsible for your thinking, they will say it is not. They will acknowledge that the DNA makes all of the genes in the body, and the DNA is the blueprint for everything you are. But they will say it is not involved in your current day thinking. Now stop for a moment. This is extremely linear and understandable because this is how everything has operated for eons. You are a product of linearity because that is what you've experienced all your life. There's no admonishment on your linearness, only the understanding of why you have it. For instance, if you're going to build a car, you have a manual for the car. That's the DNA. The car is then built. That's what's happened in the womb. The instruction sets, the manual, it's born with you and you carry it around. But basically, only a small part of DNA has done the work and continues to do the work because it produces human genes. Now, the linearness is this. You drive the car around, but the manual that built it is still in the factory. You have a linear sense of time. The manual is studied, the workers come, the car is built, the manual is put away, and you drive the car. That's very linear. What if I ask you this? What if you had a multidimensional manual for your car? And it was carried with you all of the time, and it was dynamic and interfaced. For instance, let's say there was some super force that actually improved the manual, rewrote certain things within the manual, and it actually reflected within your car as you drove it. So you'd be driving around in your car, and the next day you'd get in, and things would work better. Perhaps the instruments might even be added or subtracted or changed position. So the car improved itself by itself because it was a non-linear system. That is what is happening. It is going to be ages before science even begins to think about acknowledging the fact that your present DNA is changing in a multidimensional way and affecting the way your synapse works in your brain. That it starts to change the very psychology of the human being. It starts to improve, with free choice, how you work with each other. I'll tell you something. We have spoken about compassionate action. A human being is invited to start being more compassionate. It starts with yourself. Can you internalize compassion and forgive yourself for anything you believe you've done? Not what God thinks you've done. That's compassionate action. It moves forward. Can you have enough compassion for that which is around you so you see God everywhere and not just in the church? And you'd say, this is an amazing idea. How do I do this? And where is it going to come from? And what do I do next? And I would like to give you a concept today. Your DNA, old soul, interdimensionally is picking up that power of intent that you are giving it, and it's starting to change on its own. As the cells reproduce in your body and the DNA molecules involved, that is a changing manual in real time. And it starts to change the way you feel about everything. The way you think, your maturity, the elegance of who you are. Up to this point, a linear approach has you stuck with issues that then have to be resolved. And so you'll go into a linear pattern of how to resolve issues because there's barriers between the subconscious and the conscious. What if I told you that an improved DNA starts to drop the barriers? The conscious person will start to see the subconscious, the not self. Will start to understand the importance of one thing or another thing, sort it out themselves. As my partner says, put the things in the back seat. They'll still be an irritation, but they're not going to guide your life. What if this was starting to happen on its own? So think of the manual itself as being interactive and starting to change you in real time. This is the thing that will not be seen as valid. It's too esoteric. It's channeling. So let's just go to the next one. Since it's unbelievable anyway, why not push the envelope? We have talked about the three parts of consciousness, not of subconsciousness or the not self, but that of the brain, the pineal, and the heart. We remind you again that the heart is being discovered, not just as a pumping mechanism, but perhaps even with neuron action inside it, that the heart is literally part of the thinking human. You touch your heart and you love someone. You touch your heart because you love spirit. It is involved in your thinking process. Even the indigenous would touch their heart. Those who have studied the heart realize that the magnetics of the heart is 10 times what it is or more in the brain. Some say it's even 100. They're starting to make discoveries of what the heart can do and its real role, besides pumping blood. The pineal is involved. We've even given you the idea of the triad, the three of them working together. But what if there were layers of the triad? You've heard of the higher self. It is a higher level of yourself. What if there was a high heart? Now, the high heart actually has a name. You can find it. It's in ancient spirituality, because those who have come early with even higher DNA functioning better knew of it, named it. It is the compassionate heart, and this is the one that is starting to be active and growing and be more part of you. As you look upon the lake, as you look upon each other, as you look upon that which is natural, You start to understand it more. Now listen, there are so many of you light workers listening and even here that have worked on the planet with those who are suffering in societies that are not as high-minded as yours. Almost in survival they are, and so there's much death and there's much sorrow, and you go there. Let me tell you what happens without the higher heart activated. You fall into empathy, and that is not compassion. Empathy will destroy a light worker. And that is because your feelings are out, and they're way out. And you will assume they're suffering, and you will cry daily. Even those who are so involved with the planet and they see what is happening and what humans have done will cry daily because their empathy factor is out of control. The high heart is the compassion factor that helps then to put itself over the empathy, and together there is an appropriateness of understanding. What good is a doctor who tries to operate on a person and then gets involved with their disease and can't continue? There must be that which tempers the empathy and makes it appropriate so you can continue with your compassion. The masters who walked this earth saw everything. And they were compassionate to the max, but their empathy was also there. You saw it in the caring that they would have of every single one they met. The high heart is beginning to be activated, and that is where compassionate action will be something you don't ask about and say, what is it? How do you define it? You'll just be doing it. You'll make turns in your path to see something or someone because you feel something that is compassionate to them. And the empathy will be there, but it will be measured, and it will be controlled and governed. These are the balances that you're starting to come into psychologically that start to really create a balanced human being, one who's fun to be with. Even as I close here, there are those who are unwilling to become anything but linear. I want to give you an example. You're still trying to pass through one level to get to the next. Some of you are going to ask, when will my heart graduate to be a higher heart? Or is there two pieces? Are there more layers? How many layers are there? And how many times do you have to pass through this one to get to this one? Can you be knocked back a few? That is linear. It is almost like somebody gives you a grand piano, and there's many notes, up to perhaps 88. And you play one note, only one note. You want to get to a higher note, so your finger has to play every single note up to the higher note, one at a time. 35 notes later, some octaves later, you get to the note you want. Is that the way you play a piano? I want to tell you, all the notes are there, and you've got multiple fingers. You can play the music of the mind. It all happens together. Your DNA, right now, is starting to advance if you choose to feel it, in order on a daily basis, in reproduction of cells, to give you a better thought process. There will be scientists who say, yes, but synapses and neurons are not ones that rejuvenate. Yes, they are. They just do it differently. Not only that, there is more to thinking than the brain. This is all starting with genes that are improving, with all of the things in your body starting on a regular basis to improve themselves. It's all starting to make sense in your actions as a human being. In that which you can dismiss, your akash is clearing up. You don't have to go to a reader if you can figure it out yourselves. The akash starts to become more beautiful and give you things that you need instead of the things that you're irritated with or that push you into corners. Do you see how an improved DNA on a daily basis, monthly basis, starts to drop the barriers, the issues, the problems, the nightmares, the fear? The invitation is for you to see it as a piano, to play it all at once, to see the many opportunities in your mind in this metaphor. Grow another hand or two and play it even larger. Play a symphony for yourself, all the notes at once if you wish. You'll get the idea. Things are happening together, not one at a time. It's going to change the concepts, the paradigms, even of what is going to be called quantum psychology. The understanding that the human is dynamic, changeable, and the very triggers that you try to get to, the subconscious that you try to reveal, the pathways will no longer be linear. It can happen all at once, and the triggers may actually be somewhere else. This is not that new. You're going to find this in ancient spiritual systems. But today, for now, in this place, as Gaia looks on and smiles, I tell you, this is where the new human is going. You're in a great place to hear this. No distractions, not really. Where Gaia is pumping energy to you right now. You listen to the birds, even to other humans who may not be part of this group, having a wonderful time, enjoying that which is here to be enjoyed. Look upon all of these things as appropriate, beautiful, and compassionate. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Again, we will say, you might notice that my partner flips into channel too fast. Too fast as then identified by authorities in the esoteric world. The human being's cellular structure is not designed for trance. Corporally, there's a balance set up that is very 4D. Very 4D. You were born this way. You study this way. You go to school this way. And if you should study trance, mediumship, if you should study that which is channeling, you are given instructions to prepare yourself in certain ways. The tools to get there are those of relaxation and breathing, of visualization, of transformation of who you are into something else. That should take a while. And then you can channel. I told you some time ago that even that has changed. It doesn't make sense, dear ones, to turn on and off your spirituality. To have one structure called human and another called trance. We've told you now for some years that you can meld the two, so you can instantly go into meditation, instantly get answers, and instantly channel. And it happens through that which is what we would call a rewriting of everything you thought. And what you think about and what you know, what you think you know, comes from being taught from others. Where else did you get it? Therefore, there is a linear lineage of how to do things, of how they work, of what is known, of what your teachers say. One of the biggest issues that we have talked about, and just recently, is what happens when you start to shift your thinking. I just told you that in order to meditate, to channel, to heal perhaps, anything that used to take tremendous effort in getting to a certain place of consciousness is now available instantly because you temper your own consciousness differently, so you walk around differently. And that gets us in trouble because the teachers of the past have said that isn't the way it's done. Again, I want to remind you, what is it that changes your mind, dear ones? There are those sitting in front of me now, known to me, because I know your names, who have gone against the training. So you'll be trained in one thing and come out one way, and then start to have aha experiences that rewrite and reframe what you know. The hardest thing that is possible for the human being at the moment is to change their minds about profound things that affect them. It is almost a betrayal of those who taught you. If you've had a mentor who teaches you the way things work, it is only naturally to fall in love with that information, perhaps even the mentor herself or himself. And you capture that personality and you say, this is the one that I follow. This is who I learned from. This is what I know. And you teach it, and you capture it, and you use it every single day, and then something happens. Someone comes along and says, you know, that's different now. Or perhaps your own awareness says, wow, it seems to be different now. At that instant, you have to make up your mind. Yes or no? And if you start to shift and change even a little, it can carry the feeling of betrayal to that one that you have loved and followed and cherished. This is how you know if you're an awakened light worker, because you can track back to a time when you started to shift against what you were told. It is so important for you to understand that if you have shifted from what you've been told, that doesn't mean that the past was incorrect. It means that things have shifted and changed. So the shift and change that you are in carries that information which is different than you were taught and told, and makes you an outsider to many others who may have been taught and told with you. It is why so many of you are what we call black sheep in your families. You step out of the karma, out of the training, out of that which your parents have told you, your teachers have told you, in order to awaken to something to you which makes a lot more sense, that is more beautiful and elegant for you. The masters of the planet did not go around accusing others of being wrong. What they did was to show the magnificence of being right. The right and wrong is not black and white. It's shades of awareness and consciousness. But the masters had some of the highest shades. And what it built into them was compassion, no judgment. They showed something that everybody wanted. And it didn't make anybody incorrect or wrong. It simply changed the paradigm of thought. It upgraded it. When you go to school and you go from grade to grade, you realize that information becomes more elegant and more understood until you reach a point where you graduate. Is there anything incorrect in your life about going through those shades of light and dark in order to come to a graduate place? Sometimes you go through stages where you learn elementary things, and you can throw away the elementary things when you get to higher levels of learning. I ask you before, and have many times, how many of you carry the primers with you that you learn to read? And the answer is none of you. And the reason is because the primer is no longer needed. It got cognized in you, and reading is part of you. Do you see where I'm going with this? There are still those carrying around the accoutrements of spirituality, things they were told they had to do, or be, or carry with them, or touch, or face, certain ways of breathing and doing. That's the primer that starts to then be dropped because it becomes intuitive inside. Every single one of you here is being touched in certain ways, some slowly and some quickly, with the realization that there may be more than you thought. And the realization of being more is not there's more information. That the world is bigger, you are bigger, and that when you start examining it, it's benevolent. It doesn't come at you with fear or judgment. In fact, each door that is opened slowly contains joy. Awareness of light is a joyful experience, even when you are perhaps dealing with the issue of betrayal of a teacher. You start to understand the appropriateness of it all. And so this message this day is about the appropriateness of shift and change. Don't be afraid to look around. I will say this to those who are listening right now, not necessarily in the group. If this prompts you to look around and it's fearful, or if it's not right, or it's not right time, and you want to shut the door, do it. I want you to do what's most intuitive. That simply means it's not ready yet. That is how all growth works. If you're ready to ride the bike, you ride it. If you need training wheels, they're there. And if you can't ride it today, you may ride it tomorrow. But the bike always is there to be ridden. And so you go at your own pace and at your own speed. There is no correct or incorrect in this. Again, we say, your path is your path. It belongs to you. It's beautiful. It's respected. No matter what you see around you, no matter what you're told, no matter what the shoulds and should nots be of those who might advise you. You are your best advisor. The maturity that you have for yourself is the king of all of this. We said it before. Do not always look outside of yourself for solutions when the best ones for your path are your own. It's a beautiful message of self-empowerment, and it's a difficult thing for many old souls who have trudged a track in the past of being pushed and pulled by energy and others to get to the place where you are today. May I say it to you, you're free. This shift has made you free to think as you wish, to go where you want, and to start collecting energy that you need for a new life. Even if it's a subtle new life, it's one where you wake up smiling instead of worrying. That's it for today. We'll speak one more time. Perhaps more. And so it is.